Everything you're about to hear is for entertainment purposes only. Listen, have some fun, but don't ever do, believe, or promote anything they say. They're idiots.
Guys, hold up. You should know, this ain't for everybody. Welcome to Savagely Loud. What's happening, people? Guys, welcome back to the show for the people that understand that facts divided by feelings equals failure. I'm Cliff, I'm your host, and today I'm joined by another friend of mine, but we'll get to him in a second. But before we do, if you want to help me out, get these words out, get these truths out, you can follow me on Instagram at Savagely Loud. That is where I'm most active. On that page, you're going to find two links. One of those links is to the Savagely Loud podcast page. If you could please follow me there too, that would be greatly appreciated, as it will inevitably become my backup page when they shut Savagely Loud Maine down. The other link you're going to find is a simple link tree. Anywhere you want to hear my bullshit or see my rants, you can find it there, easy peasy. And outside of that, Facebook, X, Rumble, and Substack at Savagely Loud, YouTube at Savagely Loud Podcast, and you can email me in at savagelyloud@gmail.com, which I strongly suggest you do if you want to be guaranteed for me to see your communication, because my DMs are always full. Outside of that, last but not least, don't forget to like, comment, and share the material. It really, really does a huge benefit when you like, comment, and share the material. And especially, guys, from the bottom of my heart, please, pretty please, with sugar on top, don't forget to rate the show and give me a good review, because it does help break the algorithm, get the show into the algorithm, into the ears of the people that you know need to hear this shit as well. That all being said, let's get to my friend, James Firman. Wow. How are we doing today, brother?
Good, man. How you doing, brother?
I got zero complaints. Before we get started, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you?
All right. Well, you can find me. I'm also most active on Instagram. Also, I don't post very much on TikTok anymore because TikTok is owned by the funny hat people and whatnot, and it's kind of gotten gay in the last, couple of months or so, increasingly so, but also now on Rumble, YouTube, the Canceled Again podcast that I do with me and my podcast partner, Mike James. Canceled Again, you can like and subscribe to that as well. I'm honored to be a guest on Savagely Loud. Been following you for a while, dude. And, you know, we've been going back and forth a little bit on Instagram, and we recorded one episode, and now we're doing another one because my lighting back here was messed up. But, dude, I'm happy to be on and honored to be on again, brother.
I'm honored to have you, and I'm going to have to start checking out your podcast. Canceled Again, you said it was?
Yeah, Canceled Again.
All right, I'm going to have to take a look at that, because I'm always in for new podcasts. Because, you know, we all seem to have a list of podcasts, list of shows we listen to, and after a while it gets a little old, and you need a little fresh meat, shuffle on in, so I'm going to give you a shot.
Heck yeah, man. I appreciate it, dude. And, you know, we've done like a few live shows. Me and my buddy Mike James have gone live on YouTube a few times. I just signed up for Rumble because YouTube kind of will be weird about broadcasting your stuff out to a broader audience when you say shit like nigger, Jew, anything like that. Right. On the podcast. So, you know, Rumble is kind of the place where it's at too. But I just started doing the Rumble thing, but most active on Instagram and all that too.
I'll tell you, man, when it comes to TikTok, because you hit the nail right on the head. Like, so I was on TikTok, and I had my page up there, but I didn't do shit with it. And then next thing you know, I'm like, you know, I hooked up with Dominic Izzo, and we became really good friends, and he relit this fire. So I was like, all right, well, I have to attack social media now to grow this thing that I'm going to do. So I started on TikTok because that's where everybody fucking said to go. I was on Instagram too, but dude, I was blowing the fuck up on TikTok, and I was like, all right, sweet. The China, because it was China talk at that time. And I was like, they must not really mind that much. You know, I mean, considering that they're trying to ban black people from their fucking country, they must not mind that much. And then all of a sudden it was just strike, you're out. And I was like, holy fuck, guys. And I tried to appeal it, and they're like, nope, we're not appealing that. You're not going to appeal that. And then they sold to the Jews. And now, I can only imagine how I kind of thought it would get better when the Jews owned it, because they only give a shit about you. As long as you're not talking shit about the Jews, you'll be all right. But no, that's not what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no, it's not. I haven't posted TikTok probably in a little over a month now, because before it would be almost the polar opposite. Like about a year ago, I would post the same like reel on Instagram and then post it on TikTok. Well, TikTok, it would get, I don't know, 20,000 views and, 500 likes. The same one would get 1,000 views and, maybe 100 likes or whatever on Instagram. But then it kind of flipped after the election time and whatnot. And because there was all the legislation about TikTok that was like going through, and then Trump like reversed the TikTok ban, because TikTok was banned, and then there was Lemon 8 for like 3 days. Remember, I still have a Lemon 8, but I don't think I've ever posted on it. But there was Lemon 8 for a couple of days that was supposed to be like TikTok's backup or whatever. And right after that, it was anything you said that wasn't like Black Lives Matter. And, basically, if you didn't have, one of the yarmulkes on or something like that, or, promoting I'm a white liberal or something like that, TikTok was banning your shit and whatnot. And I got like 3 strikes in a week about a year ago. And then I barely post on there anymore. So
yeah,
I'm not crazy.
I'm not all about the TikTok. Like I tell people, like they send me shit and they're like, and I'm like, dude, I'm not on TikTok. I got banned once and I was like, fuck it, I'm never going back. And people send me shit from TikTok all the time. I'm like, dude, I can't even watch it. Well, they're like, well, set up another account. I'm not going to set up another account in a place I don't want to be just so I can watch some video you sent me.
The video you sent me.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's pretty interesting, though. The TikTok, I didn't think TikTok would be the one, but TikTok kind of led the charge on the censorship aspect. We saw Facebook and Instagram kind of do it heavier earlier on. But then, like you just said, it was like once the election cleared, boom, you can say anything you fucking want. Well,
yeah, no, it's crazy. Like the metaverse, like Instagram, Facebook, whatever, they flipped like right after that. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I can say Nick Fuentes clips are like the biggest shit on Instagram right now, bro. Like every other fucking thing, when I scroll through Instagram, every other thing is like fucking Jews or whatever.
Right.
A Nick Fuentes fucking remix.
Or Gypsy Crusader yelling hard R's all over the place.
Bro. And oh God, it's crazy. And TikTok was kind of that a couple years ago, which it's always been kind of like would push that kind of content down. But on lives, I would go live on TikTok a lot and just like to talk shit like about like black fatigue is kind of what grew me on TikTok, like some of my black fatigue lives and reels that I posted on there. And I would just be like, well, what is black fatigue to you or whatever? And I would have that as my live caption. And, it was always liberal fucking white people who come on and be like, you don't know what's going on. My cousin has a fucking black boyfriend or whatever, and he's the greatest guy ever. And it's like, well, wait till he goes out for milk or whatever. And that shit would it would get your shit going or whatever, But because you have to kind of be controversial in this day and age to get noticed, almost, But
I think that's the category we fit into, controversial.
Right. And, I have a lot of controversial opinions and whatnot, but, it's funny that it's always in the comments because, like, my biggest comment posts on my most controversial shit, it will be liberal white women or private accounts that have, like somebody's troll account that they go to comment. And like early on, a couple of years ago, like when I got into the politic shit, like on social media, I would go back and forth with these people a little bit, the thumb keyboard warriors. And then I would just go to their profile because they would point something out of my profile. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'd go to their shit and be like, dude, you have like 200 followers on a private account, dude. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not even responding to your bitch ass anymore.
Yep. Yeah, that's how I operate. If I go to your fucking page, first and foremost, if you don't have a profile picture up, we're done. I'm not even paying attention. And then if I go to your page and you got like 71 followers, 2 posts, and it's a private account, followed by a bunch of numbers, you can fuck off. You're just not going to get under my skin.
Kick rocks, bro.
Yeah.
Same shit. And it'll always be those type of people. But like on your most controversial shit, it will be you're from Illinois. I grew up in Washington State. So, I mean, I grew up, and probably when I grew up there, one of the widest areas of the fucking country.
Right.
Like, I think maybe there was one black guy at my high school, but there's lots of Indians, the feather, not dot Indians.
Right.
But they all drop out of school by like 8th grade, usually. So my graduating class is pretty much all white people. And, I never really met any black people till I joined the Army at 18. And it was, different kind of culture shock then and whatnot. But it's always people from those type of places that don't interact with any other race that are like, oh, you're so racist. We need to let everybody, until you ask them, to let a refugee live at their house or something like that,
right.
Which those videos are hilarious. But, it's always people that have never had any interaction or never had any of that affect them in their entire life that are the most passionate about it the other way. And it's fucking so jacked up, dude.
Oh, that's the most dangerous demographic in our country. Not black males, not the 6% of black males that are creating 70% of the violent crime and 53% of the murders. They're not actually the most dangerous in my mind. The most dangerous demographic of people in this country, in the United States today, is the American liberal white woman. Because it's just, 100%. These women, they are so scared of not looking virtuous to the other Karens at the book club that they'll literally crumble the entire future for their entire family, including their children and their children's children, just so that Karen at the book club doesn't fucking chastise them, doesn't call them a racist or whatever ist,
Oh yeah, the virtue signaling that they have to look good at the book club, like you said, with the other Karens, or when they're at the HOA meeting or whatever, they have to have the "In this house we believe" sign in their front lawn.
Dude, I've got this liberal fucktard. He's got a house and it's right around the corner from me. And it's just that. Dude, he's got a flagpole with every fucking liberal opinion he could imagine on this flagpole. And then what do you see all around his house? Cameras. Fucking guy looks like he looks like some kind of backwoods crazy inbred fucking hillbilly, like people call me, with all these cameras. Well, man, you wouldn't need so many fucking cameras if you weren't anti everything American, Oh
yeah, no shit. Like, why don't you advocate for, I don't know, some kind of homogenous fucking society where we have trust and, all that other shit that we don't have to have cameras all around the fucking place.
Right.
And I was talking about this on one of our podcasts about a week ago, buddy. And, my podcast partner, he's half black, African American, as I call him. But he's a fucking good dude, man. And, good dude. One of my 3 a.m. friends that, if I was in a bind and, I one of the first people I called and he'd be here in a jiff, dude. But Yeah, and he pushed back. He pushed back on this a little bit, and we had pretty good conversation about it. But I was like, well, it's the multiculturalism in America and the homogeny has disappeared, and it's not ever going to come back in our lifetime unless we start outbreeding immigrants or get rid of a lot of people, and the ICE raids aren't really going as they were promised to us. I voted for, deport everybody, not,
every last one.
Yeah, right. Every last one, not H-1B1 visas and, just deporting the gardener or the nanny. Everybody. But until we have some sort of level of homogeny in our society, there's no level of trust that's going to, because we have such a social welfare safety net in this country that, that's great. That's why there's so many Somalis and all that stuff in Minnesota, because they didn't first move to Minnesota for the most part. They went to a European country where they weren't wanted. They went somewhere like Alabama or South Carolina. And in the 90s, in particular, like the late 90s, there was advertisements in Alabama that all the great social welfare programs they had in Minnesota and Michigan, because Minnesota and Michigan were pretty much homogenous states at that time, 95 to 97% white, even up to the mid-late 90s. And a lot of them went there in floods from all of these other places in the early, mid to late 90s. A lot of them didn't end up there first. A lot of them are married to their cousins, their brothers, sisters. Their average IQ is 67. And, let's import retarded third world people from other countries and not expect them to create their own subculture within our culture. And I'm going off on a little bit of a rant here, but if you don't have any sort of homogeneity in any society or something to hold you together, it is going to break down. Multiculturalism is not ever going to work anywhere.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, and it's all part of the fucking psyop to erase tradition and value from Americans and pretty much everybody across the world, especially white people across the world. But people, it's all part of the psyop. So we can have, I believe, a multiracial society. Right. We cannot have a multicultural society because our society is inherently in and of itself its own culture that needs to be celebrated and it needs to be upheld, or it goes disastrous. And when we have this over-encompassing, this overbroad or this overarching culture that sits in America, that lives in America, and then we introduce Somali culture, and we introduce, Iranian culture, and then we introduce Mexican culture, and we introduce Japanese culture. All of these cultures now, it's not the races of people that start fighting for territories, it's the culture behind the races of people that fight for territory. So I can tell you, I lived in Minnesota, so I live north of Chicago, but I did end up moving out to Minnesota and I lived there for 3 or 4 months, and I lived in a place called Stewartville, Minnesota, which is southeast, kind of southeast corner of Minnesota. And I lived there, and then I worked in Rochester, Minnesota. And Rochester is it's a fucking awesome city. It's adorable. It's like the miniest big city you'll ever go to. You can walk around the whole fucking place in like 2 hours, and there's big buildings and shit, but it's tiny. It's all compacted. But when I moved out there, I was like, we were walking around with this girl that I was with there that lived there. We were walking around with her, a couple of her friends, and I was like, man, it looks really Middle Eastern around here. And the girl I was with, she's like, yeah, she's like, it's all Middle Eastern. She's like, this is one of the biggest hubs of Middle Eastern people outside of the Middle East. And we just walking around more and more. And then I started noticing even the road signs weren't even in English, and the fucking signs on buildings weren't all in English. And then next thing you know, the call to prayer comes across the fucking thing. And I said something And one of her friends was like, don't even fucking go there, dude. Just shut your fucking mouth, because they will come out of everywhere and fucking kill you. And I was like, really? Like, I thought this was like, these were peaceful people. And he's like, no, they're peaceful as long as you leave them the fuck alone. If you don't leave them the fuck alone, peace goes out the window quicker than you can fucking blink. And that was again, one of those times where I'm like, dude, you can't believe anything that we're taught. They're just telling us everybody's wonderful just to get them here. And then they're letting them run amok and take over places that were ours and we're successful. And now they're becoming dumpy fucking shitholes.
Well, yeah, no, for real. And, my people on my dad's side, my great grandparents came to Minnesota from Norway to farm fucking land and stored in Minnesota is where my people are from. On my dad's side of the family that came over from Norway to Minnesota to farm that land. And now Minnesota was pretty much Scandinavian.
That's what I was going to say, Scandinavian.
When we were kids, well, the Minnesota Vikings, the football team. And now it's you might as well call it the Minnesota,
Jeets,
Muhammad Jihad or whatever. Durka land. It's freaking crazy, man. And where you have to be uncomfortable in your own country because of an immigrant population that will kill you in your own country. Why everybody isn't fucking up in arms and livid about that is just like, dude, if that's what it means to be an American, like, dude, wouldn't you be ashamed to be one if that's what it meant to just cower?
Yeah, it's
to other cultures, bro. Like, no, dog, that ain't what, I would imagine George Washington and all the people who founded this country and, fought against all odds against Great Britain and the greatest navy in the fucking world to create this country would have been stacking bodies like fucking sandbags by now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's sad, bro.
It is absolutely sad. And, and I think the saddest part, I guess I would say the saddest part is not even, again, not so much the takeover by the other people, because let's face it, if you were in a shithole country because you had a shithole people and a shithole mindset, wouldn't you look at America as like the golden fucking ticket? Like you'd want to be here because it's all set up, done and everything. And you could just come in, exploit it and take advantage of it for your own gain and own benefit, knowing that they won't do anything to you. And then once you get here, you realize you can actually exploit the system and mistreat the people at the same fucking time as if they're lower than you are. That's the astounding thing is how they come over here and there's no grace. No grace at all. Like, no, thank you for allowing us in your beautiful country. Thank you for setting up this beautiful country and then welcoming other people into it. None of that shit. It's they come over just like the Mexicans do. They come over, they make and they go, fuck you, give me what I need, and fuck you if you don't. And then we give it to them. And that's another sad aspect to it is that we just keep capitulating. Yeah. And I can't help but wonder, let me get your take on this. Okay. This is this theory that I've been kind of kicking around. So it's kind of fresh, but I've been really thinking about the notion that maybe, just maybe, America was a recipe for failure from the get-go. And the reason I say that is because let's take, choices. Okay. So if you walk in, let's say you need a new t-shirt, right? You walk into a store and they have 1,000 t-shirts. It's overwhelmingly difficult to make the decision, and statistical fact, because I'm in the retail industry through some of my brands, statistical fact says if you give people too many choices, they won't make one at all. And they'll just walk right out of the store. However, if you hit them with a minimalistic choice, then they will always make a choice. So if you walk into a store and there's 1,000 t-shirts, you're more likely to not make a choice, to not buy a t-shirt than you would if there was only 3 t-shirts. So in the setting up of America, in the founding of America, there's no specific rules to anything, right? It's all like, because the entire theory behind America is individual liberty and the pursuit of happiness. That's it. So that leaves literally every single thing under the sun open to interpretation, meaning if I'm an American citizen, my personal liberty and my personal pursuit of happiness could look one way. And then somebody else comes over here, illegal or illegal. Let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say they come over illegally, they get their documentation, and now they're a legal citizen. Their pursuit of happiness and individual liberty is very different than mine. Their pursuit of happiness is to turn this into a high class shithole like the one they left, but better. You know what I mean? And that's the antithesis of what I would believe being a citizen. And I think that the more I think about it, I just think that I almost kind of think that America was set up for failure from the get-go.
If you give a broke person money, they'll just be broke again, but it'll take them less time, I guess. They might be a rich imbecile for a month and they'll be broke again and turn their life into a shithole again.
Yeah, what is it? Statistically, like 83 or 82% of lottery winners are broke within 2 years. Hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you got nothing.
Yeah, how does that happen? Well, it's because you have to be able to handle that. If you don't work for it, if you don't sweat for it, you'll never be able to enjoy it anyway. But to your point, and we kind of talked about this. We're not going to go down a religious rabbit hole, but I think the next episode that we do together, because I inevitably think we're going to do a lot of these together.
Yeah.
But read the Federalist Papers, because John Jay and John Adams debated kind of what you said. You go into a store and the many choices of the three choices. And one thing that John Adams and John Jay were debating about in the Federalist Papers was that our Constitution and our individual liberty and self-government is meant for a religious and moral people. And that, obviously, if you give everybody guns, the freedom to do what they will, they wish on their own private property, and the right to say whatever the hell that they want, there's obviously has to be a level of morality and trust as far as that's concerned. Because just because I can say, I could say right now, and Clinton's a fucking cocksucker, I hate this motherfucker, or whatever, and there's going to be consequences, obviously, if I say that to your face and all that other stuff. But there's a level of trust between a religious and moral people in self-government that comes with a Republican form of self-government. And the debate that they actually had before they ratified our Constitution about all of this, and Benjamin Franklin even said in a paper about the Federalist Papers, because between the Constitutional Convention in 1787 and the ratification in 1789, there was a lot of debate about it between the founders and the framers and all of that, and the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans at that time and the Whig Party, about if we should have an aristocracy like in Great Britain, or if we should have a Republican form of self-government. And really, we actually did have a form of aristocracy as you would see it today within our Republican government. We didn't popularly elect presidents and senators and stuff like that. Congress was the only thing we actually popularly elected for the people. But Benjamin Franklin said this is either going to end up in a utopia or back in a monarchy. And they debated it for a couple of years before they ratified the Constitution. And you should read the Federalist Papers. It's like reading a VCR, instruction manual. It's not a fun, exciting read, but it gives a lot of insight into what they thought about the government that they formed that we live in today.
Well, and I can totally see their perspective with the religious and moral people. So every time religion is mentioned, people will push back on it. But I truly believe that religion, Yeah. Okay. Let's. I know everybody's going to push back. Not you, but not you, but like people, the listeners. Some of you are going to push back. You're going to hit my fucking emails about how religion is this whole sense of control. I understand that, but there is a positive side to religion in general. Not even a specific religion, but there's a positive side to religion, and that is that when you're living for a higher power, you're living for a God, you're living as if you're on TV, like you're being watched. You inherently operate to a higher level. You operate to a higher moral standard. So I would agree with you that if you were to say that the America should have some sort of you should be religious in some sort of sense, because it does instill that moral compass in you to, unless you're talking about Islam. It's a fucking cancer and it's shit. But every other religion, you can, even Judaism, listeners, I know I got it, but even Judaism, you can find some sort of positivity in, even if it's only for their own people. They live by a moral standard. And I think, I think that you should have some sort of, even if we called it spirituality.
Well, I would rather somebody ripped me off than killed me, for not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So the Jews will Jew me, but the Muslims will blow you up.
Well, and that's always the argument. Like I like to ask people, I'm like, okay, because like on the JQ front, it's impossible now in this day and age to not notice what's happening. It's just impossible to not notice.
You can't.
And so like my content, I talk a lot about every other community. I don't talk too much about the Jews because they're going to do what they're going to do. They do it with a certain righteousness, which they believe is better than everybody else. So I talk about all the other cultures, because if we can fix the other cultures that they use to fuck things up, like the Jews do use black people and funnel them into areas to fuck things up so that they can go get it at a cheap price, then gentrify it up the fucking, which means introduce white people again, and then up the property values and all this other stuff. And then they make more money. But the people that push on me for not talking so much about the Jews, because I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of people on the internet think if you're talking at all, you should be talking about the Jews. Fuck everybody else. They're the problem. Fuck you guys. When they push on me, I just ask them, I say, would you rather, if you had to pick, let's just say you had to pick, because you do, would you rather have the Jew slave machine, the Jew tax slave machine, or would you rather have the Muzzy murder machine? Because the Jews have owned this motherfucker since 1948. I know a lot of people don't want to accept that, but the Jews have owned the United States since 1948, and that is especially when we started seeing gigantic rises in cost of living, taxes, all this other shit, and year over year, everything raises, but we're still alive, we're still making it, and we can still, no matter if we're broke or not, we can still get up and find some sort of happiness in life. If they kill us, I don't think we're going to find a lot of happiness there. Now, that's not arguing for, I don't like the Jews either, but if I had to pick one, I would rather be alive and taxed than dead.
Well, yeah, no shit is, I've got a house to, my right and left of me. And, if I pick my neighbors to the right or left, I'd probably pick Morty Mortenstein than Al-Haktabi Alab or whatever.
Morty Mortenstein.
Oh, he's a nice Jewish boy.
Yeah. And, but, we're at this time with this day and age. And, that's the other thing I got to say when it comes to people pushing on me about you should be talking about the Jews. I fucking talked about the Jews all the way through the 90s and all the way through the 2000s. And the entirety of society shunned me, saying I was a piece of shit. And now you want me to come back, lead a movement after you shit in my mouth for 40 fucking years? Like, no, I'm going to talk about this thing and then, we'll go from there.
Everybody's noticing too. And then, a lot of it too is the translated Hitler speeches and whatnot with AI in the same tone. And, all the speeches that you assumed were like, fucking, we need to exterminate the Jews.
Yeah.
And, all the stuff that you were taught about his Aryan principle and all that other stuff, which if you read Mein Kampf and listen to his speeches, you're taught an entirely different thing about Hitler than is actually true.
Right.
Like in history, but the good guys are undefeated in history, and we kind of talked about that before. But Hitler was a German nationalist that wanted to deport the Jewish bankers and people who controlled their theater, the poisoning of the minds of our children through theater, and all that other stuff out of Germany because of hyperinflation. A lot of the stuff that was happening in that time in Germany leading up in the late 1920s and early 1930s in Germany. And you're taught a different thing in history than was actually true. So you can really trust history about as far as,
right.
I can throw my F-150 in the driveway.
Yeah.
So,
well, and throughout the course of mankind, we know for a fact that certain history has been erased. Every time a conqueror would come through, for the longest time, for generations and generations, every time a conqueror would come through and conquer a new land, all of a sudden the people that existed there prior to that were outlawed, banned. They burned all the books, they burned all their historical atmosphere, their historical materials, everything. They erased civilization after civilization after civilization. And we're largely still doing it today. I mean, we everywhere you look across the global landscape is, one country's trying to pull a land grab on another one, and then they're trying to genocide all the fucking people and erase their culture or erase their fucking history. And it's kind of insane to me that people just don't see it.
Us here right now.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Here in America right now is who they're trying to do it to. And, if we don't fight back a little bit, 100 years from now, you'll hear that Somalis are, the framers of the Constitution. And,
yeah. Yeah, that's a fact. And one of the things here too is like, and I know a lot of all the white people don't like hearing this, but we are our own worst enemies. Like, and this is coming from the dude that talks a lot of shit about the black community.
Oh.
Like, because I talk about the issues in all these communities, because if you don't talk about them, they never get fixed. So, but the more you talk about them, the more people like it. I mean, let's face it. Let's be honest. It even happened with white people over thousands of years. Is people talked about the issues, and we eventually resolved those issues so that the people would stop talking about them. But now that's what I do with the other ones, and it's really just to incite the conversation. And then once we have the conversation, we can come to a middle ground. But in this country, white people are our own worst enemies. Globally, we're only 7% of the population. And in this country, we may be 63. Well, I think we've dropped to 54% now, or 56% now. But here's the problem, is that not only do we have all of these white people, mostly women, mostly liberal white women, but we have all these liberal cuck men that, I'll use that term loosely. Bro. And, they're just giving it all away under the guise of virtue. But even a bigger problem than that is white women have reached a point in time where they no longer want to breed. They're the only women on earth. Literally, white women are the only fucking women on earth that refuse to have children. And then they expect everything to go well. Like, dude, you're turning your back on why the fuck you're actually here. Yeah. And you're trying to be a man, instead of, we look at the Middle Easterners, we look at blacks, we look at Mexicans, we look at all these people. And they're all their women are having children, because that's what women do. They're having children. They're raising the household while the man is working his nuts off to support the household. And that's the way it's supposed to be. But then we look at the white demographic here in America, and we see the men working their balls off while the white women are trying to do man jobs and argue that they can abort children.
Right. No, absolutely. 100%. It's, the way, I guess, like what you said, liberal white women and cuck white men who will just say whatever the fuck to go along and get along with them and not tell them to shut the fuck up. And this is kind of how it is. And I think you and I, last time we were talking about like Nick Fuentes, and we both obviously like Nick Fuentes and follow him and all of this stuff. But, you know, to a certain point, though, too, with people like that who say all of this stuff, I don't know. I have kids. Mm-hmm. I have 2 beautiful white children with a white woman. And when you say, oh, we need to breed and do this and all this, well, I'm not sure Nick Fuentes has any children.
He doesn't.
Or and is practicing what he preaches, like we were kind of talking about before. I was like, okay, well, find a good white woman, and as you say, tell her to shut the fuck up, make a sandwich. You're making money. You have the clout and all of this other stuff to actually practice what you preach. Are you going to do that, or are you just going to kind of talk on the internet, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of do all of that. And I'm not throwing shade at him, because obviously I love the message, and he's kind of dialing it back a little bit because he's gotten a lot of clout now. But obviously, like, dude, if you need to have more white kids, bro.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, and that's one of the things that, like you touched on, it bothers the fuck out of me every time I hit the internet. And, you know, and I've got a handful of favorite influencers that have kind of mentored me through starting businesses, starting podcasts, starting this, starting that, doing that. I look up to these people, men especially, and many of them don't have kids. And a few of them really lean on that whole fucking fight about we need to have more kids. Like, where the fuck are your kids? How come it's everybody else's fucking job to suffer? You know, because I mean, we have to be real. Like, kids kill dreams. Like, a lot of the times, kids kill your dreams. When you have a child, like when I had my first kid, I had my daughter in 2005. In 2005, it was costing me almost $1,000 a week just to have her in daycare so that me and my wife could go to work. And then when we sat down and did the math, and it was literally costing us $10.16 a week for us over what we had for my wife to go to work. So we pulled her out of daycare and just had my wife stay at home. But that's, I think, part of the plan, because then you're cutting your income in half. You're doing this and that and the other thing. However, the benefit of it is now you have this nurturing person. This was my first wife. We get along okay, but you have this nurturing, empathetic entity that is always in the house, willing to help, like willing to do the house shit, because that is a whole aspect of life that, you know, it needs its own support structure, and that's where women come in. So I wasn't really sure if I loved it or hated it, but I knew it was fucking bullshit the way the system was rigged against you when you had kids.
Oh, dude, it's 100%. And, you know, it's funny you said that in 2005, like, I mean, shoot, 5 years ago when I had 2 kids in daycare, bro, it was $2,100 and something a month for 2 kids to go to daycare, bro. It was another mortgage payment, dog. And I'm like, the fuck? I was like, you know, and we were going to have another one at that time. And I was like, yeah, let's wait a little bit. If you have another one, we might as well have you at home. Yep. Our oldest is about to go to school and all that. And I'm like, you know, let's think about it that way. But yeah, no. And like, it's funny though, too, that you mentioned a lot of my mentors are kind of in the same way, that we're like, oh, we need to have more kids and whatnot. Well, like, where are your kids, bro? Yeah. You're telling everybody else to do this. We're out here doing it, and you know, I know what it costs and whatnot. And like you said, kids can kill dreams, but they're also like, it's the most rewarding experience in the world, as you know, as a father. Like, bro, it's, you know, the most rewarding experience to the people that you love the most in the world, you're preparing to live without you one day, is one of the most thankless jobs and one of the most rewarding at the same time. It's hard to explain to somebody that doesn't have children.
It teaches you something. It teaches you a lot of things about yourself, the way you view the world and the way you feel about how you view the world, that you wouldn't otherwise learn. And I think one of the keys are, I think every dude should have a daughter, because There is a lot of fucking guys on the internet now. We can break into this because
I have sons.
right. But and we can break into this because I did a video this morning about it. But I see the more I log onto the internet, the more I see men just hating women. And I totally understand why. I totally understand how you could come to that conclusion. But there is a certain necessity in women that, that we keep hearing from men again, that hate women. Now we can move this to this demographic. These men that hate women, they're still bitching that we need to breed, but you won't even talk to women. So again, so now it's everybody else's job to forego the gallivanting lifestyle, forego the fun, forego the money, forego the fucking parties, forego everything for 20 fucking years while you can go out and live it up. You can get on your private jets and make all your fucking millions of dollars. You can do all your TV shows, your movies, and your podcasts and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
About bitching that other people aren't having more kids while you're not even talking to women.
No shit, if I didn't have kids, I'd probably have a fucking lake house or something.
Yeah,
it's 100% agree. Yeah, that's
kids cost a lot, and that's where people don't understand. Is like, and you really, I don't think you really get the true cost of children until you have them.
No,
and you have them for a little bit, you have them for a year or two. Even you really start getting getting a grip on what they actually cost.
Yeah, you're like, you're paying attention to the stock market for the price of, like diapers and shit or whatever. Like that type of shit.
Can I buy into Pampers and Similac now or what?
Yeah. Do I take stock in freaking Inframil right now, dude? Because it's freaking crazy. But yeah, no, you don't get it until gosh, I have two boys that eat like freaking sumo wrestlers, bro, and they outgrow their clothes about every 3 weeks, it seems like right now. So I'm like, Jesus Christ.
But yeah, right. But yeah, like I was saying is, I think it would be beneficial for at least, let's say select men, most men even, to have daughters, because I do know myself, some men that, they understand life. They understand the gray areas and the nuance of life, and they understand how easy it is to become gender specific or gender focused. So these men out here that they don't have daughters, they have an extremely easy time, ipso facto, trying to remove women from the equation. But then there's these men that have daughters like myself. I have a daughter and I have a son, or two daughters, two sons, two stepchildren and two biologicals. But I try to push back, like, hold on.
No, I agree with you. I agree
not you, but like I push, they'll push on me and then I'll push back and I'm like, hold on, dude, you're talking a lot of shit about how women shouldn't have any rights, but I would challenge you to come to my home, sit at my dinner table with my daughter and tell her that she should not have any rights. It's awfully reminiscent of, just broad scale blind rhetoric. Now, that being said, I do believe that we should strongly reconsider the 19th Amendment. And that's the amendment that gave women the right to vote. But here's the thing is there is a nuance here, because there are a lot of women that are hugely beneficial to the prosperity of this country through their voting. There really are. But there is a larger demographic of women, an overarching demographic of women. It overshadows all of the good ones, of the women that just want to feel virtuous. They want to look nice to their friends. They want to feel like they did a godly thing today. So they vote in everything that is basically the antithesis of their own existence. Like take Sharia law with Mamdani goat fucker in New York. I was watching video after video after video after video of women celebrating the idea that Sharia law could be brought to New York. And it's insanity to me how you think that, and I think maybe it's an American thing. Maybe we're just so spoiled that we went from being spoiled to now being entitled, meaning we're expecting to be spoiled. Yeah, right.
You know?
But to
It's like
think,
a Diet Coke. You know?
yeah, to think that you would welcome in as a woman a religious doctrine that allows you to be get the fuck beat out of you in the street when you disobey your man. If I say walk across the street for no fucking reason, bitch, you better do it, or I can beat your ass, and the fucking judge is going to laugh you out of the fucking room.
Right. Well, yeah, no, I agree with 100% with what you're saying. Like, because I see kind of how my brother, actually, he has 4 daughters.
Oh, heaven help that man.
Oh, bro.
When you got a boy, you got one dick to watch. When you got a girl, you got to watch them all.
Him and his wife tried for a boy. After 4, they were done. But I have all boys. And so I see, I guess, how my brother is sort of different towards like women a little bit in general, I guess, than I would be a little bit. Not that I'm like completely chauvinistic or anything about the 19th Amendment. It's easier for me to be with, like, to my boys, this is how you should be towards women, because I'm not treating a little girl in a certain way or whatever. But they see the example of how I treat their mother and whatnot. Yeah. And that's how you teach a young boy how to be a man and how to treat women. Because, in our house, me and my wife talk about things, but it's ultimately my decision at the end of the day. And my wife will support that, even if we disagree. And they get to see that. And I always make sure, though, too, that when my wife and I are fighting or whatever, and if it's in front of the kids or whatever, because husbands and wives argue, that they see us work it out a little bit too.
Right.
I love you, honey. You give each other a kiss. It's okay. And we'll talk about it behind closed doors later, even if it's in front of the kids at that moment or whatever. And that's always how you should be. But I agree with what you're saying, that it's sort of different, like when men that have daughters, of how you are towards, or even towards, like, other men, or like, even, do you have sons?
I've got sons. I've got 2 sons, 2 daughters.
Yeah. Okay. And how you are telling your sons about women because you have daughters or whatever. It's so, I can see, that's an area I don't fully understand, but sort of understand seeing my brother with his daughters and whatnot. But I do agree with you about the 19th Amendment, but I would say it should be a household vote. And I don't think everybody should be able to vote just because you're 18 years old anyway. Like, you should have to contribute to society in some way to decide how things go. Like, why should somebody in my local district here that doesn't own property here, doesn't work here, pay taxes here, contribute in some way? If you don't work and you're on welfare, I don't care if you're 60 years old, why should you be able to vote here? Like, literally, what's going to happen here, my dollars are going to pay for it, not yours.
Right.
So I don't believe even men in some capacity. And that's the way it was for a long time, up until, even 10 years after the 19th Amendment. Not even all men could vote at that time. A lot of it was like poll taxes, or if you didn't own property in some places.
That's the big thing. Like, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm under the understanding that originally the plan was in order to vote, you had to own land. You had to be a landowner or a business owner, because you had to have something at stake to have a say in the way things are conducted in your homeland.
Well, yeah, no, that absolutely, that is the way it was before. And when everybody says, well, white women got their right to vote before, like, black men, and they say all this other stuff. Well, not even all white men could vote, even up until the 19th Amendment. Right. It was, largely changed even about 10 years after the 19th Amendment to everybody over the age of 21 years old. It used to be 21. It was always 21 years old, even if you owned property at 18 or 19 years old. You couldn't vote until you were 21 years old. And now you can't even buy a pack of cigarettes now until you're 21, but you can go sign up for the military to go fight and die. Yeah. But you can't have a Marlboro after a firefight.
Can't have a Marlboro and a Bud Light.
Yeah, but not to get off on a rabbit trail, but that's always the way it was supposed to be. You had to have a stake in society to have any sort of say or control over it. And I believe that's the way it should be now. It's the way it should always have been.
So what I would say is I like that. I mostly agree. I wouldn't even say I disagree. It's more of a gray area, because now we live in this time in society where a lot of people don't own. A lot of people, they work their balls off, they contribute, they pay their taxes and stuff, but they like to rent. So I own my house that I'm in, and I have also rented a lot. And there is some very, very big bonuses to renting. Especially if you're not into yard work, rent. Go find a fucking apartment or something. But there are a lot of people that rent, so they technically, if you're under the land ownership to vote thing, they wouldn't be able to vote. But some of them are, a lot of them are good people, a lot of them are smart people. So the way I would think about it, let me run this by you, see what you think about this. Mm-hmm. Is instead of, everybody gets to vote at 18, like everybody gets to vote at 18, or everybody gets to vote at 16 or 21. I think you should have to pass an annual test. Like, in order to, the voting should be a bigger thing. So if you go to the voting booth, it's not like I'm just going to stop by the voting booth on the way to the local Piggly Wiggly to get some fucking mashed potatoes. You go to the vote, and that's like a day trip. Like, you have to, you go in there and you take, let's say, a 300 or 400 fucking question essay or whatever, or quiz or exam or what. Let's prove that you should be voting. Let's prove that you have the future, the best interests of the future of the country you're voting in at heart when you're voting. Now I think it's too easy for stupid people to have an opinion. I think you should, and like social media, I'll be honest with you. Everybody talks about this censorship. Guys, we have a curated internet, just like every other country on the face of the earth has a curated internet. China, Russia, Ukraine, everybody has a curated internet. So does America. If you think Americans' internet is uncurated and unadulterated and uncensored, you're out of your fucking minds. So let's just move to this notion that, we have to be like ultra patriots to vote in this country. And then you take your test. If you're proven to be able to vote, then you vote. And if you don't pass that test, you can come back next year. There's no redos, because now the question is fresh in your head. We want a long term. We want to make sure that this is ingrained in who you are. This isn't like, I memorized ABACABB. I want to know it's in your heart.
So I saw a totally cool TikTok reel. So now I'm going to go vote for this totally cool person I saw this totally cool person talk about, and
what was that election?
To a certain extent, not that I would say like maybe a 300 or 400 question test, but I do believe it should be more difficult to vote than it is now. And I don't know what the answer to that is necessarily, other than a stake in society. It doesn't have to be property ownership. Because like you said, I mean, there are people that rent instead of on their home, and home ownership is becoming increasingly hard, even if you are a contributing member to society now. But I mean, I own my home and whatnot, but it doesn't mean that, if the property value gets too much higher, I wouldn't, like sell this house and go rent for a couple of years or something like that. Like I thought about a couple of years ago, but like having some sort of stake in society, like continuously, perhaps, but I don't know. I guess a great way to answer that question. I mean, maybe it would be some sort of test when you go to vote, or whether it be like re-registering to vote like before every election, so you're kind of on top of it, so the more responsible people are voting, not just I'm on my way to get the mashed potatoes at the Piggly Wiggly guy.
All right.
is just going to go vote for some TikToker who some TikToker told him to go vote for. Like, I do believe there should be, you should have to have some sort of stake in society to decide what happens in it,
Yeah. Well, I mean, how sad is it for society that we had that election not too long ago, and the guy that wore a rubber boot on his head and looked homeless had votes?
Yeah, dude.
Like, how sad is that?
Oh, bro. I mean,
people voted for this fucking guy, and then and we're supposed to then take them seriously next year, right?
Well, man, it's so funny. Some of these people that keep getting elected, like, I mean, I'll even throw shade at, like the Mitch McConnell in the Republican side, as much as everybody it makes fun of Joe Biden not being able to get off the stage, and not knowing where he's at. Like, that motherfucker's fainting on his way to go in and vote on the House floor. It's like, people like that don't belong in Congress, but you're in a district that is never going to vote the other way. So it just doesn't matter. You could literally, I think my neighbor's dog could run as a Republican in my district, and he's going to get elected because I live in that sort of district. Also think, the mayor of Seattle could be, a transgender dolphin that's swimming in the Puget Sound, bro, as long as he was a Democrat. People just vote one way certain places, Doug.
Transgender dolphin.
Bro, all you got to say is, transgender dolphins deserve free parking places at community college. And some people are going to get fucking elected.
Yeah, they just too much emotion. It's too much emotion. Like, I'm going to vote for what I want,
And it's the overall selfishness of a lot of people and whatnot. But, it's also, I don't know. I like to take the emotion out of a lot of what I'm doing or what I'm thinking about, and try to be more pragmatic about things. But, obviously we're all excitable.
Well, that's what men do. We operate on logic, and that's why we were talking about taking the women's right to vote away, because they only operate on feelings. So, I love the way you put that out there, right there.
Right. Exactly, bro. It's just that's what we got with the 19th Amendment. 100 years later, here we are that we're debating whether drag queen story hour should be a thing in elementary school, bro. And it's freaking crazy. That's why, I grew up in Spokane, Washington. It was on the Washington-Idaho border in, northeast Washington state. And, my sister still lives there. Her kids go to a charter school in Idaho because she won't take her kids to public school in Washington state because they teach sex ed in like first grade. Yeah. And about like gender stuff, like Bobby wants to be a girl type of education shit. Yeah. It's like, what the fuck world are we living in to a certain degree where like that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that, some guy that wrote a bad check 20 years ago can't get, a handgun because of a background check. Well, we have to make sure that's the deal. But, Bobby wants to be Susie is okay.
Yeah.
And it's,
well, isn't it weird though, that like our society now, this is objective fact. Like, this is an observation that anybody can make. Our society today is exactly in the position where the German society was in 1929, 1930.
Absolutely.
So and that makes me think about what's going to happen next. Like, truly, I believe I truly believe that we have such a narrow sliver of hope left, because it's going to require so much action. But we have a society of people here that are just not going to do it. They're everyone here is, like we've all heard the dog chain metaphor where it's like if you chain your dog out in the backyard and you walk out there and you take one link out of the chain every so often, next thing you know, he's neck up to the tree, no chain, and doesn't mind. But if you walked out there and took all the links out at once, he's going to be freaking out when you chain him to the tree by the collar. But everybody is now so comfortable with just take the links. As long as I can get up, bitch about going to work at my barista job where I don't make enough money as a 42-year-old woman. As long as I can do that and then come home and not have to have children and just fucking cuddle with my 19 cats, everything will be fine. These people now in American society especially will give away their entire future and the entire future for their entire family lineage as long as they don't have to do anything that's even slightly uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, I agree with you 100%. And yeah, no, the dog and the chain to a tree, it's the same. I heard a different metaphor to explain the same thing, that, you don't boil a frog by throwing him in a pot of boiling water. You put him in a pot of water and you gradually turn up the heat. Mm-hmm. And he's dead before he fucking knows it. And, you're cool with a little bit more heat and a little bit more heat. And, you're boiled alive before you know it. And I think we're to a point where we're almost boiled alive. It's right on that tipping point. And I think it might even be over. And I think we may even be cooked, because I think, like you said, we are at a point really where Germany was like in the late 1920s, early 1930s, where like it's what books were they burning?
It's a cesspool.
Oh, it's complete. Yeah, 100%. And, I believe that our Bill of Rights in our Constitution is absolute. I don't care if you just got out of prison 5 seconds ago. If you've done your time, you should be able to walk into a freaking Academy Sports and buy a shotgun. You should always be able to have the freedom of speech. That, if you're too dangerous to own a gun, you should still be in jail. And that Bill of Rights that is endowed to you by nature and nature's God is 100% and shouldn't be able to be taken away unless you have done something to take it away and you go away for a while. When you come back, you should be able to have it. And we debate over gun control laws more than anything in this country. We debate to get the gun control laws that we already have. We already have background checks. Yeah. Like I think a lot of these people that debate with the firearm stuff have never went and bought a gun before.
Right.
Because you have to get a background check.
Yeah.
And if something comes up, you've got to wait a few days until they clear it up, until you can go get it.
Yep.
And so I believe some people just that debate this stuff have never actually done it before.
Yeah.
Or anything else, because we already have all that stuff. And I don't even believe you should have that. But that comes to a religious and moral people and a level of trust in society that you have that we don't have anymore because of multiculturalism. Because if we lived in a homogenous society that trusted each other and generally were good neighbors to each other and looked out for each other, it wouldn't matter if I had a tank in my front yard. I'm not going to use it unless there's Chinese people or some other people parachuting into my neighborhood that I've got to handle business.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. We do live in a society where it's I'll insert a little bit of hope here and I'll say it's so on the brink that it could be almost unsavable. But here's the other thing is that there is a part of me that believes, like you've seen like old people, right? There's like some old person walking the mall and you're like, holy fuck, man, they died like 2 weeks ago, but nobody told their body. I kind of feel like that's American society. Like we died 40 years ago. Nobody told us though. And this whole Project 2030, I think what it is, I'm big into conspiracies. I truly believe in and the shit that they do. I don't believe every single thing that somebody says. But they have to tell you they're doing it because then they get karmic retribution. If they don't, it doesn't play out with the satanic gods and all this other shit. But they have to tell you what they're doing. I think this Project 2030 thing it's not an idea. That is the ending. That's where we're headed. It's already done. It's already in motion. And we saw the world's largest transfer of wealth during the COVID era to make that to make that easier to facilitate, because we shuffled, we lost over 750,000 private businesses, small businesses in America during COVID, but because they had to close because they were non-essential. But Walmart stayed open, Walgreens stayed open, CVS, everybody that was, in the Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 and all this other shit, they all got to stay open, and they got exponentially more wealthy and exponentially more control. So now we're at the point where we've got the CEO of Nestle talking about buying the Colorado River and then charging people to take water from it.
It's insane, bro. With that transfer of wealth during COVID was really the thing that got me so disappointed in all of my fellow countrymen, that nobody would stand up and say, fuck you. Because I would be one of the only ones at the grocery store saying, fuck you, I'm not wearing this fucking mask. I'm going to pay for my groceries and you can shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. It was just like everybody, oh, well, we just have to do it. No, we don't.
Right.
Call the fucking cops. I'm going to here in the grocery store to buy a fucking gallon of milk. You're not going to tell me to put a fucking diaper on my fucking face. I'm sorry, dude. I was so disappointed during that shit with everybody.
And the most disappointing thing for me was, now I got some bad fucking friends. Like, I'm not friends with a bunch of nerds and weaklings and pussy meek bitches. I got bad motherfucking friends. Even they were allowing themselves to get shut down by the 17-year-old at the Ace Hardware with blue hair. You need to put a fucking mask on. And they'd fucking whip that bitch out of their pocket and stuff it right onto their face. Like, dude, you could end this bitch right now, but you're going to just listen. You're allowing the stupid people to have all of the authority. And now we're in a situation where because of that, because so many bad motherfuckers and so many normal Americans allowed the stupid people to have all the authority, now we look out across the landscape of America and all the stupid people believe they should be running the show.
Yeah, no, we let the fucking nerds run fucking everything now, bro. The weakling motherfuckers that, when we were kids, would have got shoved in a fucking locker are telling the motherfuckers, like you and me, or or our friends or whatever the fuck, what the fuck to do. And that's not, the natural order of things has been disrupted to such a degree that it's going to take a radical shift to bring things back to any sort of normalcy.
Like Germany.
Right.
It's fucked up, but that's about what it's going to take. I mean,
it'll take a true populist leader, and it will take it, dude. I think Trump's first term, we sort of had that. They recognized that. On the other side, the plandemic, as I like to call it, not the plandemic.
Yep.
Take him out. They charge him with a bunch of fucking, bullshit shit from 30 years ago. Some women couldn't remember the day, time, or when, but Trump totally raped her at a Tiffany's store. That case that they brought against him and all this other bullshit, where he took the AIPAC money and he sort of was like, okay, I'll go along to get along and whatnot. Because in this term, there's not as much pushback against Trump as there was in his first term.
I think the first term he was doing a lot better job for the American people, and the people that owned America, the people that owned all the debt and all the wealth, they didn't like that shit. But now everything he's doing seems to be making the wealthy wealthier and the fucking poor poorer.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, no, he took the AIPAC money, and he's a Bush type neocon now that just says, dumb shit on, or offensive shit on Twitter sometimes. He's George Bush, 2.0 that will say, we need to deport more Mexicans or whatever every now and again on Twitter. Basically, the same thing. And I think, if we don't get a true populist, like a true outsider and we don't have which we're seeing a cultural shift, which gives me a lot of hope. Like, people are waking up to this bullshit a little bit. And, that gives me hope, and maybe a populist type of outsider that could be like Trump promised to be in his first term. But Trump had too many skeletons in his closet that they brought out, and they basically said, here's some AIPAC money, and now he's Bush. But it's the Zog machine, the CIA, everything. It's going to be a huge fucking animal to overcome, brother.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up, because we've had a really good. We're already almost an hour and a half.
Oh shit!
You believe that shit? So
we've been on the phone, or we've been on this for, I don't know, 10 minutes or 15.
Right. So let me ask you this. Let's have you give you the final word. If you had 3 choices, let's say you got put in power, and you could make 3 decisions that were gonna stick, that were going to put this country back on a trajectory of prosperity and thriving and moving into the future, what are the 3 things that James Firman's going to enact?
Okay. Well, repealing the 19th Amendment would be number 1. I think that will take care of a lot of the other issues societally, like the social issues that repealing the 19th over a 20-year period would probably take care of a lot of social things. I would also, I think it's 13. Not 13. 16th or 17th Amendment that took away the Senate being appointed by the state legislature. The Senate used to be appointed by the state legislature, not popularly elected. The Senate used to be the state's representatives in the House. So I would take away the right of the people to elect their 2 senators. And I would give that right back to the state legislature. So your state got to decide those 2 representatives from each state. I think that would we could solve a lot more problems constitutionally and all of that stuff, because your state would have representatives. And I think your congressional elections would matter a lot more at that point. And also repeal the income tax, which I think those were the progressive amendments at the turn of the century, the Senate and the income tax amendment. I would repeal those 3 amendments, and I think the country would be a better place. And if those 3 things could stick for at least, 100 years, 150 years, we'd probably have a whole lot better country here in 20 or 30 years.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. President Firman just told you how it goes. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to make the fucking country better. Let everybody know where they can find you one last time before we get to Hopelessly Human here.
Firman Method Official on Instagram. That's also where I'm most active. Also, Firman Method Official on TikTok, although I don't post on there as often. I go live on there sometimes. And also the Cancel Again podcast on YouTube and Rumble. You can find me on there. And I'm humbled to have your audience, brother. It's been an honor to be on, dude. And I look forward to being on again.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be on again. I'm going to have you back, and we're going to get into some other good topics, because I can tell all the viewers, all the listeners. You can push on Mr. Firman here. You can push on James, and he's got zero problem standing his ground, pushing back, and making for a good conversation. And we'll bring you one of those sometime. But guys, if you want to help me out, before we get to Hopelessly Human, you want to help me out, you can follow me on Instagram at Savagely Loud. That is where I'm most active, and on that page, you're going to find 2 links. One of those links is to the Savagely Loud podcast page. Please follow me there, too. The other link is a simple link tree, and where you want to hear my rants, see my bullshit, you can find it there. Outside of that, Facebook, X, Rumble, and YouTube, or Facebook, X, Rumble, and Substack at Savagely Loud. YouTube at Savagely Loud Podcast. And you can email me in at savagelyloud@gmail.com. I strongly suggest you do. Last but not least, like, comment, and share the material. Rate and review the shows, because it really, really does help. Every single person's show that you watch, not just mine, rate it, review it, help them out getting into the algorithm, because if it's good enough for you to listen to, it's good enough for you to do just a little bit of work to get other people to be able to listen to it too. That being said, guys, we got down into it today like we always do, and we don't want to walk away from this episode all amped up and anxious. So let's get to a little segment I like to call Hopelessly Human, and it starts a little bit like...
People can be really rough. They can be quite tough. They can get in the way, but at the end of the day, some aren't only stupid, some are hopelessly human.
Yes, they are. Some are hopelessly human. Today's Hopelessly Human comes to you from a website called realitypathing.com. And it's titled The Coffee Shop Connection. On an ordinary weekday morning in a bustling city, an overwhelmed barista named Emily found herself juggling multiple orders while managing a long line of customers. Amidst the chaos, one customer, a young man named Jake, sensed her stress and decided to do something about it. Rather than simply ordering his coffee and hurrying away, Jake took a moment to engage with Emily. He complimented her energy and thanked her for working hard during such a busy time. This small gesture lifted Emily's spirits immensely. After serving him his coffee, Jake left an extra tip with a handwritten note that read, "Your hard work does not go unnoticed." Inspired by this uplifting encounter, Emily made it a point to spread kindness in her own way throughout the day. She began offering complimentary pastries to regular customers who were having tough mornings, hoping to share some of the same joy Jake had given her. This story showcases how simple interactions can profoundly affect someone's day and encourage them to spread positivity further. That is a huge lesson. I always say it doesn't take $1 million and it doesn't take 7 hours to make somebody's fucking day. That's Hopelessly Human, and that's the show. Later, guys.